Hey guys, Coach Adam from TeamElitePhysique.com coming to you with a season recap so far, kind of talking about everything that's happened so far this year with the Arnold, the Pittsburgh, how Fit Model division is going. I had quite a few people message me, say, hey, I want to see a video about this, and I was like, I'm not going to do the videos this year, but I guess I lied. I'm going to do the video. I was bored today. I said, you know what, let's just knock it out. There's been a lot that's happened so far this year, and let's talk about it. Let's go into everything. Talk about what happened at the Arnold, what's going to happen at Pittsburgh, how the Fit Model division has been going. There, the Arnold carries a lot of weight with it in terms of setting the criteria for the year and kind of setting a precedence for what the judges are going to be looking for this year. So I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and go into it. I talked to a couple of the judges, and with that, they gave me some insight into their opinions on why Vanya won versus Amy versus Jazzy versus Ashlin. So I thought, I got some good input too. And part of the reason I didn't really want to do a Arnold video at first was I myself was a little bit unclear of how Vanya beat out Amy and how the judging all split, kind of all over the place with this one. And as you could tell, the judges also were that way. The judges, it was a tough one for the judges. Look at these scores: 7, 10, 12. Each Amy, Vanya, and Ashlin all had a first place from at least one of the judges. So it was also that tough for the judges. They had a really tough time picking this one, and I could see why. Even I was confused too. And I analyzed most of the shows, so I was confused too. And I was like, this is going to be a tricky one. When I first saw Amy come out, I was like, oh, it's lights out. Amy looks crazy good. I thought she looked a little bit muscular. I thought she looked a little bit more X-framed than she normally does. And, there's been times where I said, hey, she's a little too X-framed. She's a little bit too muscular up top. And also like in her legs. Her legs, I don't think, are too muscular now. But this time when I saw her, I was like, you know what? She's a little bit muscular, but they like her a little bit muscular. Looking at how all the girls were looking going into the show, I thought a lot of them were coming in really jacked. It was actually something I was talking to James about, because he coaches Ari, and I was saying to him, it's like, from the pictures that I've seen of all these girls coming into the Arnold, they are so jacked that Ari might move up the ranks just because she fits like the typical bikini criteria better. A little bit softer lines, her shoulders aren't crazy capped. You're not seeing these crazy striations. These girls are coming in so jacked. Like, is this a new level? What's going on here? Or is this just, the perfect lighting in the gym is the perfect goon lighting, where you stand under that perfect light, that best spot in the gym where your shoulders look crazy and you just look awesome in the gym. I'm like, is everyone just taking pictures there, or are these girls coming in this jacked? And looking at them at the show, they did come in pretty jacked. Not as jacked as I was thinking that they were going to come in, but they did come in pretty jacked. And I think that's what hurt Jazzy, and I think that's some of the feedback that hurt Jazzy. Just she made some improvements, some clear improvements I could see definitely on her backside, but a little bit too much. Like the shoulders were a little bit too capped. You could see some graininess to the muscle. And, it just pushed it a little bit past the point. And with bikini, typically, if you want to go right, it's like Ashley says, it's the price is right. And as soon as you go over by 1 cent, then you're out of the contest, right, type of thing. And she just went a little bit too much. But it was one of those things that everyone was talking about. And I was curious about it too. I was like, how improved is Jazzy? Is Jazzy so improved that if she shows up exactly the same that she did at the Olympia, will she beat Amy even if Amy is on point this time, which she was a little bit off at the Olympia. If you look at her from the back, her tie-ins really weren't there. She didn't have the pop that she normally does. So I was thinking, what, if Amy comes in at her best, does Jazzy still beat her? If Jazzy's at her best, is that a scenario? And is that just like the new order of things now where Jazzy beats Amy, right? Is that a thing? Or is Amy show up at her best and is just like a clear winner over Jazzy, right? So it was something that a lot of people were talking about, and it was something I was super interested in too. But we're not going to see that battle, at least as of yet. We haven't seen that battle. So I think we'll see that battle at the Olympia, and hopefully they both bring their best, and we could see, both of them at their best, who will win that battle, right? So still unclear on that, because you have one at the Olympia where Amy wasn't her best, and now you have one at the Arnold where Jazzy wasn't at her best, right? So it's going to be still going to be some undiscovered things that we're going to figure out about those two going at it. Now, looking at Amy, the reason I thought she won when she first came out is because, I mean, from the front, her waistline looked crazy, crazy small. I mean, her waistline looked snatched. She looked full. She looked round. She looked a little jacked up top. And maybe that's why her waistline also looked smaller than it normally does, because her shoulders might have been a little bit bigger than they normally are. She did look a little X-framed, but then I saw Vanya come out, and I thought, oh, she's pretty crispy. Like, she is pretty diced in her legs. I thought that the judges didn't think that she was too tight from the back. Personally, I thought she was a little tight from the back. Now, I wasn't at the show, so I can only go off of what I saw in video and off of pictures, which, never tells the whole story. So I could be wrong on that. But from the striations that I was seeing on both pictures and video, especially from the front, her legs were pretty lean. And I would say, if we're talking Price is Right thing, where Jazzy's too jacked, right, for placing her that high, I would say that she, for me, and her legs were a little too lean, and it pushed her over that Price is Right thing. So that's why I had Amy winning that show, especially from the back, because Amy from the back was not too lean, with her hair covering her back and shoulders. I didn't think she was too X-framed and too jacked. From the front, I did think she was pushing the muscle limits and pushing that like X-frame, which they don't want to see. They want to see the nice curves and the hourglass shape, and that is where Vanya does beat Amy in that department. When we talk about her flow and her having that hourglass flow without being too much up top, I do think Vanya beats her there, and that might have been what was the differentiator, But talking to a couple of judges, some of the judges didn't think that Amy was over the top jacked. They thought that she was X-framed, and some of them did. So it was just kind of one of those things where it's a kind of a happy balance with her, and finding that perfect look for Amy is going to kind of be, I think it's starting to become one of those Laura Lee situations where we were talking about it for years, where we always said, when Laura Lee comes in at 100%, she's going to win the Olympia. And it was never a question of, could she win the Olympia? It was never a question of, is she good enough to win the Olympia? Is she good enough to win, that show? It was just a matter of, okay, when she shows up, she will win it. It was just one of those things, and everyone knew it. Even previous winners of the Olympia were like, well, if Laura Lee shows up, no one's going to beat her. It was always that kind of thing. And then, she went and did it. She did it last year. And it was just one of those things. Now, when we look at Amy, you see a lot of the similarities, right? Just like this happened with Ramy, too, Big Ramy. It was always like, when he shows up in shape, he's going to win. When he shows up perfect, he's going to win. And then it took him a few years, and he finally did. You see that some similarities with Amy. Sometimes she's too jacked. Sometimes her tie-ins aren't there. Sometimes she's a little off. Sometimes she's, but if she can put it together and find that perfect middle ground balance, I think she's going to be pretty hard to deal with. Now, the X-frame is always going to be something she's going to have to work past, but everything else is still there. There's still so much room for her to make those improvements and find that perfect balance where she does become that, girl who wins the show when she shows up right. I thought she looked great. From the back, when they hit their back pose, I was like, oh, it's Amy with tie-ins against this group. The way they're looking right now is like, it's game over. I thought for sure she was winning this show. I actually thought she was winning with the perfect score, to be honest. But I only have pictures and video to go off of. So, and then talking to some of the judges now after, I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. And actually some of the judges were like, it was closer between Amy and Ashlin than it was between Amy and Vanya. When Vanya walked out, her flow and her balance was so good and her posing was so good. It really was like lights out for me. A couple of judges, said that. It's similar words, right? So for that, I was like, okay, Vanya. Now, obviously, Vanya is an amazing poser, one of the best. She's like right up there with Laura Lee in terms of like the level of posing that she's at. And I think that's what pushed her over the top here. Her flow is perfect from the back. She was, second. I think Tyler said she was second from the back. Amy being first from the back, and she looked great. Now, I think her legs were just a little too lean from the back. I also think her legs and tie-ins were a little too crispy. But, I'm looking at video again, so it's tough to tell. But I could see from the front how she clearly wins. From the back, I could see how Amy clearly wins. So this becomes one of those front-back competitions again, with maybe the posing and the X-frame pushing over the top. I guess the pluses and minuses are Vanya's, maybe slightly a better poser. Amy's slightly more X-framed, but then Vanya is slightly too lean. So where do you go? And that's why you could see these scorecards being so crazy with the judges kind of being all over the place, with different judges having all 3 of those girls in first place, which is, you don't really see that happen. That's pretty rare. Usually you see 2 of the girls getting first places, but you usually don't see 3 of the girls getting like 1 first place marking. So that just shows you how crazy it is. Now, if you watch, Tyler's video, he already talked about with Ashlin. He said she looked awesome. She could use a little bit more leg size to balance out her glutes, and she could use a little bit more glute fullness because when she walks in the back pose, her glutes do lack that density and that fullness. And you could see it in the back pose. When she's walking, you can see it, and it's just a little bit in this kind of upper outer edge, falls a little bit flat in the walk, where you don't get any of that with Amy, and you don't get as much of that with Vanya. But Vanya still doesn't have this full upper outer edge fully rounded out here. There could be just a tiny bit more density on this outer edge to really push that waist to hip ratio. But from the hourglass shape, she definitely is the winner between Vanya and Amy. So with Ashlin's overall look, I loved Ashlin's look. She's just a little behind on the glutes and on the legs between these girls. I also think that at times she's a little too capped in the shoulders. I think that her shoulders come in pretty sharp on those shoulders. I don't think that she's getting feedback from the judges saying it's too much. It's just something that I always catch. I don't know if it's also she's shorter, so she has those short muscle bellies, and you can see this tricep, like the tricep really sharp with the shoulders being pretty sharp, but it could just be she's got those short muscle bellies, and that's just how she inserts, and that's just how her shoulders are. Some girls are just more cappy than others, but it is a pretty strong shoulder cap. Sometimes it catches my eye. For the most part, it doesn't, but there's times where she's moving where I'm like, there's a lot of striations in those shoulders, a lot of capping in those shoulders. But as far as her overall look goes, her shoulder waist to hip ratios, her beauty flow, I think that she's like just an awesome competitor. So anyway, that is kind of my input on it. But yes, I did have it in a different order. I actually had it as Amy, Vanya, then Ashlin, and I had it pretty close between Vanya and Ashlin, thinking that Vanya would probably edge out Ashlin, but it wasn't so clear to me because of the leg detail. So that was how I had it. Obviously I'm not a judge, but that's just how I had it. And, I look at Bikini all the time. So, that's just, I always want to be honest with these things. Sometimes when I'm doing these recaps, it looks like I'm a little biased and stuff, but I never want to be biased. There's sometimes I think Amy's too jacked. There's sometimes I think Amy's too small. This time I think Amy was the winner, even though she was a little bit jacked up top. That's just my opinion. Always going to be honest with that. Overall, I loved Ashlin's look and her flow. I actually thought it looked really good. I loved her suit. I loved her hair. I loved her makeup. I liked her posing. I really liked, everything. Her skin tone, like everything just flowed really nice. So, I had some pluses and minuses for everyone. Now, okay, moving on. In other news, all right, we have a battle at Pittsburgh, and it is going to be quite the battle. Look at this freaking lineup coming up in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is really doing things. This Power Fitness Festival is going to be nuts, and it's going to do a couple of things I want to talk about. But one of them, first off, look at this lineup, and who's not excited to see Maureen back on stage? We thought we were going to see her at the Arnold. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see her at the Olympia. Who's not excited to see the battle between now Maureen, Amy, and Ashlin going down, right? And who else is going to be jumping in that mix? Is Evie going to be, in that mix? Has Alice made the improvements to be hanging with them? Is Maria going to move up and make those changes from the Arnold and move up? Is Ari going to come in fuller and come in complete now and actually be hanging in that top 2, top 3? So it's going to be a really exciting. This is like a junior Olympia type of lineup. This lineup arguably could be tougher than even the Arnold lineup, right? I guess you're missing Jazzy in there. Or Vanya's not in there too. That would be crazy to have her in that one. So, but this lineup is pretty nuts here. So good job to the promoters at the Pittsburgh Power and Fitness. Now, the other thing about the Pittsburgh Power and Fitness, what it's going to do is it's going to set the standard for Fit Model, which hasn't really been set yet, guys. There's a lot of people talking about Fit Model positively. There's a lot of people talking about Fit Model negatively. It's a new division. That's how it's going to go in the beginning. When Men's Physique first came out, Bikini first came out, everyone was talking about it. Positive, negative. It was great for the industry. It was terrible for the industry. the guys were too small. They don't even lift. The girls are too small. They're just waitresses that don't work out. Like there's all this, people are always talking, right? And they're saying the same thing with Fit Model. They're saying similar things. The problem with the Fit Model division right now is that for the most part, the Fit Model division, like winners that we've seen, have pretty much been by the same judges. They're like Muscle Contest has had most of the shows and most of the same judges. When you look at Japan, San Diego, Vegas, I think there's another one in California, they're all the same judges. It was, it was Patrick, Ron, Brian, and even in Japan, right? It was the same judges. So you're basically getting like one opinion from all these Fit Model girls because that's how the shows basically started. It was all in, Muscle Contest shows basically started the year with Fit Model, and now we're starting to see other judges' opinions, and now we're starting to see other looks, and we're starting to get more bikini or more Fit Model competitors, and we're starting to see a real look at what the Fit Model is going to look like. So I have here pulled up some recent winners, but the thing is, the Pittsburgh has a natural pro qualifier at the show for Fit Model, for bikini. For the most part, Fit Model is going to be a natural division for a vast majority of the girls. Not all of them, but for a majority of the girls, it's going to be a natural division. And I think that's one of the big things about Fit Model is because with bikini, it's very, 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 very few girls are going to be able to do bikini naturally. And that's just the reality of things. It is not going to be a natural division, especially at the upper levels for honestly, almost anyone. But Fit Model can absolutely be done naturally. And I think that's going to be the appeal of it. And I think eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot more Fit Model competitors than you are bikini competitors. And you're already starting to see bikini competitors transfer down to Fit Model. Now, when you're starting to see these original Fit Model competitors, a lot of the girls are not the most muscular. I will agree with some of the feedback that they've said, but remember, there's been less than 100 competitors worldwide so far that have done Fit Model. It might even be less than 50 competitors worldwide. So we haven't found the true criteria girls yet, but we have seen a few of them that are pretty good. Now, I'm looking at a few of these girls that are looking quite jacked. In Brazil, we had the overall winner. Look at her shoulders. Look at her legs. That is a muscular woman right there. When in San Diego, she reminds me a lot of the 2015 bikini. I think from the back, a little bit soft, but from 2015 bikini, this was very similar to the look. A little bit softer in the legs and then the glutes, but other than that, the lines, the flow was very 2015 bikini. And it's a hard physique to achieve. It's just that it's a natural physique. And that's going to be kind of one of the biggest differentiators. And looking at some other winners that have been coming through the year, we've had some pretty good ones. Now, I believe this was in the UK overall winner, but I do think a little bit too capped in the shoulders, like a little too capped in the shoulders, but look at the overall muscle detail, the flow, it looks really good. A little softer in the shoulders, and she's good there, but the flow is really good. We're having, again, look at the legs here, right? So a lot of these girls are getting, like you're seeing bikini competitors or figure competitors saying, oh, they don't, they're not muscular, they're not jacked. And it's funny, it's always the division like above talking about the division below being like, oh, they're not jacked, they're not jacked. What I'm seeing now and how it's starting to develop when you see women like this with how muscular they are coming into the division, this is getting closer and closer to the 2015 bikini look. And Pittsburgh is really going to be the criteria setting show for it, because now we have, Tyler judging these shows. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Tyler will be judging the Pittsburgh. Sandy will most likely be judging that show. We're having these tier 1 Olympia high-level judges. Becky will probably be judging that show. And they're going to be like, okay, this is the criteria going forward, and this is what we think out of a pro should be. And I think that it's going to shed some light on the Fit Model division. So you really get to keep your eye on the Pittsburgh show that's going on, because a lot of things are going to happen. You have the bikini throwdown. You have the crazy bodybuilding lineup. You have the first Fit Model natural pro show, the first Fit Model Pro being awarded by, Sandy and Tyler and these judges that really understand the division and created the division, right? That were around in 2015, that saw the winners of the bikini criteria back then, what it's going after. So I think that right now, and I've had some talks with girls about Fit Model, and it's always the same thing. And if you're part of this conversation with me, I'm sorry, I'm not talking smack on you, but it's always the same thing. You'll have a bikini competitor who isn't muscular enough to do bikini yet, that usually will need a little bit more muscle to fill out the Fit Model frame, and they'll look down and resist Fit Model because they're like, oh, it's less than bikini. And I'm like, it might be less than bikini in terms of the muscularity for sure, and the conditioning for sure, right? It's softer and it's less muscular, but you're still not muscular enough to do Fit Model yet. Like, you still need more muscle to fill out the Fit Model division. So that means you're way far away from bikini. It's like you doing bikini right now and saying I should be figure just because I like figure. And I think that that's a reality check a lot of girls are kind of going through right now, and they're resisting the Fit Model. But I'm telling you, and I've been telling you since it started, most of the bikini athletes that are in NPC level are going to fit the Fit Model division better than the bikini division. Most of you are. And it's just, as we start seeing these shows come through and we start seeing the higher level competitors, you're going to be like, okay, I'm not more muscular than the recent winner, right? Like, how many girls in doing bikini right now are more muscular than the UK overall winner? Like, and be honest with yourself too. Like, how many of them actually are more muscular than this Fit Model winner, right? Very few. So, but we're still running into that in this Fit Model thing because we haven't seen the real criteria. But the Pittsburgh show is going to be a real eye-opener for people. I believe it depends on who shows up, of course. If only 5 girls show up, then they got to pick the best one. But I think it will be when they award that in front of those Tier 1 judges. And if that's not the show that does it, then USA's, and Universe definitely will be. And I think that a lot of people are going to be like, okay, Fit Model is no joke. Like, these girls are pretty jacked. And I've been fighting for this division for years. And the reason is that I know how hard it is to get to this level of muscle for women naturally, right? And this is tough to do. And if you're saying you're beyond Fit Model, you're saying that you're more muscular and you're leaner and you're better than all 4 of these women here in 2015, right? Right now, you're more muscular and you're better than them. So you are a division above them in muscularity and in your conditioning. And I think that when you look at these girls, you're going to be like, okay, that's pretty impressive. That is a pretty impressive physique. I'm not past that. I wish I was past that, but the reality is I want to be bikini, but I Fit Model. And I think that a lot of women are going to think that when they see that. Now, I took a picture of Janet here and put her next to some recent winners. And Janet still is clearly a little bit more muscular. She's not leaner than her, but a little bit more muscular. We still haven't found the Janet Leug, the Ashley Cotwalser of the Fit Model division yet, but we're getting closer. Like, look at the muscle that's coming through compared to the original Fit Model winners, right? Look at the muscularity that's starting to come through, the roundness that's coming through. Remember, Fit Model isn't a no muscle division. Steve DeVore said this the best. He's like, it's not no muscle. It's just less muscle than bikini. And it's not soft conditioning. It's just softer than bikini. It is not like this whole crazy different division where it's like no muscle and just soft girls. He's like, it's a little less muscle and it's a little softer. That's it. That's Fit Model. So it's not like this whole thing that people are making it out to be. So I think that we're getting closer to the Fit Model division. Again, I want to reiterate, look at the back on these women in Fit Model in bikini back in 2015. Look at the fullness and roundness of the glutes. Look at the leg conditioning. Look at the shoulders and the ratios. And, very few bikini competitors are past this point, and that's why I keep bringing it up. If you're past this point, then yeah, you're bikini. If you're not past this point, then guess what? You're probably Fit Model. And so that's just something I think a lot of people are still resistant to seeing because, they all have been training to be bikini competitor for years, and they're still resistant to seeing that you're not you haven't maxed out bikini as of yet, but you are Fit Model. And I think that once we start getting to these higher level shows, it's going to be more evident, and you're going to see a huge shift of bikini athletes going to Fit Model. And I think Fit Model will be bigger than bikini within the next 2 years. I think probably 2026, like mid 2026 would be my guess, because a lot of the bikini competitors are going to be resistant to it. They're going to keep doing bikini, and then the judges are going to keep saying, you need more muscle, you need more muscle, you need more muscle. Maybe you should consider fit model. And eventually they'll stop being stubborn and they'll be like, okay, yeah, these guys have all been right. I am fit model and I'm just going to embrace it. And there's a lot of level of competition. So I say jump in while it's hot. Jump in while you can. And there's not 1,000 fit model competitors. But the one thing I'm happy about seeing with these fit models is that they're getting better and they're getting better and they're getting better. I do think the original winners were a little smaller. I agree with some of the feedback. I think, we had our first pro winner in Japan. I do think she's a little bit small for when we compare the 2015 pro levels. If you look at the pros here and you look at the Japan, the first pro winner, yeah, she's going to need a little more size. That roundness, especially when you look at the shoulders, the legs, the glutes, to be at that pro level when the division starts building up. So there's a lot to be discovered still about the fit model getting to this stage, and it's going to take a few years to do that. So just something that's going to be really cool to see at the Pittsburgh show. I think the Pittsburgh show is going to tell us a lot about fit model, and then Universe and then USA's will really, really wrap it up. Like, okay, this is what we're going to be going for. I think we're going to find them between Pittsburgh and USA's. We're going to find the next top girl that's going to be an awesome fit model competitor. I have a couple that I'm working with right now that I think are going to be pretty good. Hopefully they're one of those next stars. But these were competitors. Some of them were bikini competitors that I said, hey, you're going to fit model better, and we're going to put them in USA's. And so it's just something that you guys all got to look at. And if you're a bikini competitor in those shoes, something that you need to have that talk with your coach about and think, hey, am I more fit model than bikini? Because I feel like I'm not more muscular than Janet was when she was in 2015. I'm not more muscular than Ashley was when she won the Olympia in 2015. Am I lying to myself? Am I really a fit model? Should I just be going after that? And I think a lot of you, once you have that talk with yourself and your coach, you're going to be like, yeah, I think I am a fit model competitor. And after Pittsburgh, after USA's and whatnot, you're going to be saying, okay, those girls I do want to look like that. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a recap so far of this year. I'll be doing these here and there, I guess I'll be doing them here and there. But anyway, let me know if I got it right in the comments and what you want to see from me next. As always, teamelitephysique.com for worldwide online coaching with me, and I'll talk to you guys next time.